We live in a world of constant noise, yet the loudest sound we ever encounter is the one that occurs in total silence. It is the voice that waits for the moment you close your eyes. It is the voice that sits at the edge of your bed after a long day, not to offer comfort, but to conduct an audit of your failures. You know this voice intimately. It knows exactly where your skin is thinnest. It has a specific vocabulary for your inadequacies. It tells you that you are a fraud, that your successes are accidents, and that your mistakes are your true identity. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to argue with this witness. We try to work harder to silence it, or we try to drown it out with distraction. But we never stop to ask the most important question of all. Why does my own mind turn against me? The truth is far more unsettling than simple low self-esteem. You aren't arguing with yourself. You are living in a house of echoes, and you have mistaken the noise for the voice that built it. In psychology, there is a term for this process: introjection. To understand it, we have to go back to where the wiring was first laid. When we are small, we do not possess the psychological filters required to decide what is true and what is simply someone else's damage being passed down. A child does not see their parent as a flawed, exhausted human being struggling with their own history. A child sees their parent as the world itself. Because of this, when the world speaks, we do not evaluate it, we absorb it. Before our minds can form a single question, it has already become part of us. We take the sharp edges of a father's disappointment or the cold, heavy silence of a mother's anxiety, and we receive them as fact. We don't examine these judgments. We don't question their origin. We allow them to become the ground our entire sense of self is built upon. This is a defense mechanism. To a child, being good is synonymous with being safe. If we can anticipate the criticism of the parent by criticizing ourselves first, we create a false sense of control. We become the first voice to wound ourselves so that no one else gets the chance. We learn to preemptively shrink before anyone asks us to. The tragedy is that this mechanism never clocks out. We grow up, we move out, and we build lives of our own. Yet we keep navigating by a map drawn before we were old enough to know the territory wasn't ours to begin with. This is why you feel like an imposter in your own life. You are an adult in a modern world, still operating on the logic of a terrified child. The inner critic is not a protector. It is an old recording playing in a room you forgot you left open. It uses the first person. It says, "I am not enough," to trick you into believing the thought is your own. But if you sit in the silence long enough and listen to the cadence, the pitch, and the specific cruelty of the words, you will recognize it. That is not your voice. You can hear the tone of a person who stopped knowing the real you 20 years ago. We are essentially ventriloquizing our own wounds, using our own breath to keep alive a version of ourselves that was never allowed to grow past its moment of pain. The moment of liberation does not come from winning the argument with the critic. You cannot argue with a recording. Liberation comes from the simple, radical act of recognition. It is the shift from saying I am a failure to I am having a thought that says I am a failure, and I know whose fear taught me to think that way. When you identify the original speaker, something fundamental shifts. You realize you have been shrinking yourself to fit a shape that was never cast for you. You are allowed to stop being the witness to your own prosecution. You owe no one a finished product. Give yourself permission to be a disruption, to be a roar, and to remain a masterpiece that never bothers to finish itself. This isn't about perfection. It's about seeing clearly for the first time what belongs to you and what never did. It is to trace the handwriting on the wall and finally recognize that signature is not yours. You are not the sum of what was handed to you. You are what chooses right now what to carry forward. Build something that finally has room for you to breathe. Subscribe for more deep dives into the mind. Put down what was never yours to carry. You have a life to live.